Daniela Monet is the latest former child actor to call out Nickelodeon.
We knew something was off.
Some of the wardrobe on the show was not age appropriate, and that she, quote, wouldn't even wear some of that today as an adult.
Former Zoe 101 actress Alexa Nicholas is the latest child star to criticize Nickelodeon over its traumatic and unsafe environment.
I did not feel protected at Nickelodeon as a child personally. And so I'm demanding that Nickelodeon starts protecting children.
I remember he said he wasn't getting royalties anymore, which is really interesting. Because he was on Jason Nash's podcast, and Jason is still getting royalties from Drake and Josh.
Yeah.
But Josh wasn't because he was a kid when he was doing it.
Screwed and sold us out in negotiations with Nickelodeon because they were kind of ruthless. And they didn't pay their leads residuals.
I see the problem. Oh, do ya?
If you want to make a lot of money with a TV network, there's only one demographic you gotta focus on: children. That's because it's not just the child viewers that make kids' TV so lucrative, it's also the child actors. Child actors are naive and easy to manipulate. They don't know what's appropriate or normal yet. They aren't in any position to negotiate a higher pay, and they definitely don't want to do anything that will blow their shot at being famous. Child actors will do whatever it takes to succeed on screen, wink wink. And their parents are just as desperate. And Nickelodeon has taken full advantage of this. All of our favorite shows growing up has some very disturbing stuff going on behind the scenes. Child actors ripped off for millions, abusing child actors in a way that would definitely get this video demonetized if we went into it. And it's only now that these child actors are all grown up that these disturbing revelations are coming to light. Stay dangerous, subscribe for more, and this is the dark side of Nickelodeon. Even the largest corporations like Nickelodeon have humble beginnings, and with the right plan, a small business can become an empire like them as well. And speaking of planning, many businesses today are unprepared for the holiday orders coming up, which can lead to headaches and a lot of one-star reviews. So if you own a business that ships orders, then spending the next 60 seconds to learn about our sponsor ShipStation is going to save you a ton of time, goodwill, and money. ShipStation makes shipping stuff easier than ever by letting you automate all of your manual work, while also hooking you up with the best shipping rates out there, like up to 84% off from top carriers like UPS, USPS, and DHL Express. That's why over 130,000 companies use ShipStation, including Joe Rogan's brand on it. With a free trial and a simple setup process, you can start shipping easier in less than 5 minutes. Start by creating an account, then you connect your online seller accounts like Shopify, Amazon, Etsy, and eBay. Most platforms are supported. And finally, you connect your shipping carrier account or choose a new carrier. And that's it. You're ready to start getting all the benefits of ShipStation, including shipping automation, instant tracking updates, and a carrier comparison tool. So save money on shipping this upcoming holiday season by going to shipstation.com/JakeTrent to get a 60-day free trial. That's shipstation.com/JakeTrent for a free 60-day trial with the link below. Thanks to ShipStation for sponsoring this video. Nickelodeon wasn't always the wacky, borderline inappropriate billion-dollar conglomerate it is today. It started out as a simple idea to create a TV network just for kids. You see, before Nickelodeon and all the other kids channels that were established throughout the 80s, kids TV shows ran periodically on adult channels. Children had to wake up bright and early on a Saturday morning just so they could watch their favorite cartoon for an hour. Kids wanted more television, but it just wasn't available for them, so it was a huge untapped market. So in 1977, a woman named Dr. Vivian Horner launched the first official Nickelodeon TV show before the channel was even established to confirm that there was indeed a market for this. The show Pinwheeled aired on a local channel only in Columbus, Ohio, and it took off immediately. Kids just couldn't get enough. Nickelodeon knew that they needed to add more shows to keep children watching around the clock. And after just 2 years, the nationwide Nickelodeon channel was born. Nickelodeon revolutionized cable TV. All of a sudden, kids could watch shows every single day from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. No boring, inappropriate adult shows, and no TV ads either, just entertaining kid-friendly contents. And it was great for adults too, because the channels kept their kids locked in without a peep for hours on end. But even though kids from all over had their eyes glued to the screen, Nickelodeon wasn't making as much money as you would think back then. In fact, at the time, the channel was about $40 million in debts. And soon, children were getting bored of the same repetitive shows, and the channel was starting to drown. That's when the vice president of Nickelodeon, Geraldine Layburn, made a decision to save the brand. She started to run advertisements on the channel. Advertising to adults on TV was completely normal, but using television to target kids, that was a little bit more unorthodox. But it worked. Kids were begging their parents to spend all their birthday and Christmas money on Nickelodeon products. The advertising decision also came with a full rebrand. The logo was changed to the orange spot that we all came to know and love, and later a flashy new production called the Kids' Choice Award was created. The Kids' Choice Awards show allowed kids to cast their vote for their favorite shows, music, and movies for the first time ever. They also created a sister channel called Nick Jr. to start capturing even younger kids into the Nickelodeon universe. The channel was trying anything to get every single kid out there hooked on Nickelodeon, and it was working better than they could have ever dreamed of. The network was blowing up, and the golden age of Nickelodeon was fast approaching. And with that, everything was about to change. By the 90s, Nickelodeon became an iconic brand. They started releasing classic cartoons like Rugrats, Doug, and Ren and Stimpy. Then came Rocko's Modern Life, Cat Dog, Hey Arnold, and the Wild Thornberrys. Nickelodeon shows were becoming so popular that they could literally use their cartoons as spokespeople for kids' advertisements.
Look what you've done! My land's ruined! Idiots!
It's new Nickelodeon Peanuts, Ren, Stimpy, Doug, and more. Nickelodeon characters now on Fruit Roll-Ups. What fun Fruit Roll-Ups will we roll out with next?
Soon they scored a deal with Sony Wonder to release compilations of their episodes as VHS tapes. Nickelodeon productions were getting as big as blockbuster movies, and the kids were obsessed.
Valley live at Nickelodeon Studios for our last night of Slime Time sweepstakes.
By the mid-90s, Nickelodeon was the #1 cable channel by daily viewers, and at that time their biggest cartoon cash cow hadn't even been released yet.
Creatures. SpongeBob SquarePants. Yes, of course he lives in a pineapple, you silly.
Hello, I like money.
It was right in the middle of all the success that Nickelodeon started branching out from cartoons to create more shows with real live child actors. They gave a few different shows a shot, but one of them stood out well above the rest. All That.
Fresh out the box. Stop, look and watch. Ready yet? Get set. It's All That.
All That attracted a different type of young audience with a Saturday Night Live style sketch comedy, while also having a slightly older tone. It blew up internationally in countries like the UK, Australia, and Canada, getting so popular that it ran for over 10 years. But All That wasn't all smiles behind the scenes. See, All That was written and produced by a ruthless man, and this ruthless TV mogul would go on to practically control Nickelodeon after All That took off, and that man was Dan Schneider.
Executive producer of the Amanda Show, Dan Schneider.
Let's get a Dan Schneider.
Dan Schneider. Dan Schneider.
Dan Schneider.
Dan, we love you. Thank you so much, dude.
Dan Schneider was bestowed with the Lifetime Achievement Award, and some of the stars from Drake and Josh, Sam and Kat, Victorious, and iCarly congratulated Dan for making their careers.
She say nice things about me? Because I will tase her if necessary.
Uh-oh.
I have the taser. We haven't had to use it in a long time, but
I said lots of nice things.
So I said nice things about you too.
Oh.
You were kind of scared.
I was a little scared. You get me. You never get me.
I just did.
Oh my god. Oh my gosh, that scared me so.
Let's back up. Who is Dan Schneider? Well, if you've ever watched a Nickelodeon show from 1995 to 2014, there's a good chance he created the TV shows that helped mold your brain during your most formative years. Dan grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, and by the age of 7, he was by far the heaviest kid in his class. Terrified of being rejected by his peers, he decided that he was gonna win them over the only way he knew how, by being funny. I wouldn't be thought of as the fattest kid in class if they thought I was the funniest kid in class, he said. Early on, Dan knew that he wanted to get involved in the TV business. One day he saw that a movie was holding casting calls in Memphis, and he gave it a shot. He landed a small part in a movie called Making the Grade, and was later casted in a sitcom after getting noticed for the role. Dan was building up such a reputation that he was invited to host the second ever Kids' Choice Award for Nickelodeon. That was his in, the opportunity that would forever change his life. Nickelodeon was looking for writers to help create All That, and Dan easily landed the gig after writing the pilots. And from that point on, it catapulted his career with the network as a writer and producer. The Amanda Show, Keenan and Kel, What I Like About You, Drake and Josh, Zoe 101, iCarly, Victoria, Sam and Cats. The more successful his shows got, the more powerful Nickelodeon became, and thus the more powerful Dan became. Soon Schneider and the channel were so intertwined that almost all of their shows were made by him. On the outside, it looked like a wholesome yet massively successful kids TV network. But on the inside, Dan Schneider and Nickelodeon were covering up some deep, dark secrets. Acting on a Nickelodeon show was a dream come true for most kids. Getting a huge payday, having fans, being famous, being a child star. But the people who actually lived through it say that being a Nickelodeon star is a lot less glamorous than you would think.
My experience with acting is I'm so ashamed of the parts that I've done in the past. I resent my career in a lot of ways. I think like by 15, I was already embarrassed.
In her new memoir, Jeanette writes about being, quote, photographed in a bikini at a wardrobe fitting and being encouraged to drink alcohol by an intimidating figure she simply calls the creator.
In the excerpt, she wrote, quote, "My shoulders do have a lot of knots in them, but I don't want the creator to be the one rubbing them out. I want to say something, to tell him to stop."
In her book, she writes that after Sam and Cat was canceled, Nickelodeon offered her a $300,000 thank you gift if she agreed to never speak publicly about her experience at the network.
Whenever I had wardrobe fittings, he always had to be in them. Whatever the show was, I started to realize going like, oh, so the creator isn't in the room.
Absolutely loved Amanda Bynes growing up. Yesterday, it was reported that she'd been placed on a psychiatric hold after she was found roaming the streets naked and alone. And then she told the driver she was coming down from a psychotic episode.
How much money would you make on a season of Drake and Josh back then? And residuals.
No residuals. No residuals on kids' TV.
I get residuals from Drake and Josh.
I don't.
For a show that ran for 10 years all over the world, like residuals would have been nice, you know? And they wouldn't let us negotiate for them. The show's doing well. How about we negotiate for some residuals? They're like, we'll hire someone else.
No matter how good their lives seemed on TV, off camera, Nickelodeon was ruthless to their young actors, both emotionally and financially. And Dan Schneider was at the core of many of the allegations against the network. Allegations started piling up that painted the creator of Nickelodeon's most popular shows in a very, very dark light. Dan was apparently a domineering, cruel, abusive dictator that had complete control over the kids who worked for him. With just a few words, Dan could make or break a young actor's career, and he made sure to exercise his power, taking advantage of kids and doing things way too sick to talk about on YouTube. But because Dan Schneider was Nickelodeon's rainmaker, Nickelodeon had his back. Jeanette McCurdy, who played Sam in iCarly, was offered $300,000 by Nickelodeon to keep quiet about her experiences on the show with Dan Schneider. She turned down the hush money and later spilled all the secrets about her horrible time working at Nickelodeon and who she calls the creator in her book. Most people agreed the creator that she references is Dan, as he created iCarly. And Jeanette isn't the only one who had a problem with Nickelodeon and Dan Schneider. Another girl that was on Zoe 101 said that Dan verbally abused her on set so badly that being on TV just wasn't worth it anymore and she quit. She was just 12 years old at the time.
I see Dan Schneider come in. What now? You know, like I'm the problem again. We've already told you to stop crying and we've already told you to shut up. And you're our hours and our money and our time, you know?
There were reports that Dan constantly threw tantrums, screamed, and sent furious texts to child actors on his show outside of work hours. Actor after actor came out addressing his creepy, inappropriate, abusive behavior on sets where he had all the control. But it wasn't just actors facing Dan's wrath. He was horrible to everyone that worked with him. Writers complained that Dan blatantly discriminated against women, saying, quote, he didn't like having female writers in the writer's room, end quotes. Even people who didn't work with Dan Schneider found Nickelodeon to be ruthless. Lead actors said how the kids' network refused to give them residuals and threatened to fire them if they dared to even ask.
Kid shows were always less, like in between seasons, we were like, okay, the show's doing well, let's renegotiate these residuals. They're like, we'll recast Ned right now. There are thousands of kids across the country who would want to do this. Yeah. Like, they're savage.
Nickelodeon had all the leverage and they knew it. So they would squeeze their child actors for all they've got, toss them out, continue making money off of them for years to come, and then sign the next kid in line to do the same. When the nasty allegations about Dan hit the media in full force, Nickelodeon publicly parted ways with him and canceled all the shows. Dan went into incognito. He disappeared and tried keeping a low profile. That was until 2021, when Dan finally decided to address all the accusations against him in an interview with the New York Times. Dan insisted that his time off had nothing to do with the laundry list of claims against him, but rather he was just working on himself. He said he even lost 100 pounds in the process. He said that it was sad that social media pushed all these lies about him, that all his shows were just about comedy and totally innocence, and he humbly summed it up as whatever I do next, I wanted to outdo what I've done in the past. And he's right, I mean come on, doesn't this look like a guy you would trust your kids with? As for Nickelodeon, it looks like they're doing their best to rebrand themselves and to erase any memory of creepy Dan Schneider, and it's working perfectly. This year's Kids' Choice Awards drew 3.1 million viewers, a huge spike from last year's viewership. It even ranked as the top K-pop program among kids aged 2 to 14, which means the next generation of kids is falling right in line with Nickelodeon's plans. And even though it looks like they've cleaned up their acts, we won't know what's actually going on behind the scenes until the kids are all grown up and the damage has already been done.